You know when you ever buy a new tracksuit top and then suddenly you put it on your t-shirt and then you get all this stuff? It's annoying. Have I got some on my back? Welcome back guys to another DJI Air 3 video, and this week we are covering Waypoint. I know this should have happened the week before, but I was traveling, plus I f***ed up on the original field test day. And now I'm back in Toronto, hence my studio setup, my 100-foot square studio setup. If you haven't seen that, check that out here. So if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Demetrius, and I create videos on drones, photography, and everything in between, and it's a mix of entertaining and educational content. After several years of flying the reliable DJI Mini 2, I finally upgraded to the DJI Air 3. And I was overwhelmed with all its functions and capabilities, so I thought to myself, why not share my journey with you guys, exploring all its new functions. Think of this as a series of videos to get the most out of your DJI Air 3. Subscribe to stay up to date. Oh my God, my current subscribers are thinking, bloody hell, not again. Anyway, let's get the video started. So before I dive in, there will be chapters in the link or down below there, and all the links to the products that I use. But in Waypoints videos, we're gonna cover the following: how to perform Waypoints, my findings from the field testing, the use cases for Waypoints, the pros and cons, and just future updates that I would like to see and possibly you too. So let's get on with how to perform Waypoints. It looks more complicated than it is, but it's actually super simple once you get used to it. So there are two ways that you can perform Waypoints. You can either do it in flight or pre-plan it without turning the drone on using the DJI Fly app or the DJI RC2. So quickly, just to explain when to pre-plan it without turning the drone on. Once you turn on the controller or open up DJI Fly app, go to connection guide, hit camera view, and then tap on the Waypoints function. And then simply navigate to your location. Unfortunately, you can't just tap locate me because that doesn't work for some reason. Then just find the area you want to perform waypoints and start tapping on screen where you want those selected waypoints. Now, once you save waypoints by clicking the checklist on the left-hand side, you can sort them by distance or by date. You can edit each mission's name, and then you can modify the missions when not flying as well. So that's super straightforward. Now let's talk about planning waypoints during flight. So you arrive to your location and you want to start performing waypoints. First of all, you want to hit the waypoints button, and then you have two options here. You have waypoints and point of interest. Waypoints, all you want to do here is just literally fly the drone as you normally would without recording. And this is where you want to nail your composition, framing your shot. So what is it you're trying to capture? And every time you fly the drone, set a series of waypoints down, positioning the camera tilts, the altitude of the drone, everything as you are. Don't worry about the speed yet. Concentrate on putting the waypoints down and framing your shot. Now, every time you actually hit the C1 button or hit the function button or whatever you set it to on your mobile device if you're flying with the DJI RCM2, when you hit that mark waypoint function, this essentially records the altitude of the drone, the heading, and the gimbal tilt. So once you've finished with planning your mission, you can visit now each waypoint and you can see the parameters recorded, which you can adjust, but there's no need in my opinion. The only items that you want to change is the camera action at the first waypoint and the end waypoint. So at the first waypoint, start recording, end waypoint, stop recording. The speed can be adjusted between two waypoints, or you can just keep the global speed when you're performing the waypoints mission. You can also select if you wish to hover the drone at a selected waypoint so before carrying on to the next one. And then there's also a zoom functionality, which I don't personally like because I don't like digital zoom. Once you've set your waypoints and you're happy with all your parameters, if you tap next, this is where now you can adjust the global speed for the entire waypoints mission. And then you can select to use either the 24mm or 70mm. So again, you cannot switch between the two lenses during a waypoints mission. You can also select what you want to happen at the end of waypoints mission, and I recommend just setting this to hover, and then what you want to happen during signal loss, and just leave this as a default to return to home unless you want to do something different. Then all you have to do now is just hit go, and then the drone will start performing its waypoints mission of what you just planned. Actually, before you hit go, make sure that you set your video settings. So if you are a beginner, set this to auto. However, if you want to shoot in pro mode or manual mode, I suggest to set these before hitting go. And the video settings can be found, again, I've made a video on this and you can check that up here or in the link in the description box below, I'll link it there too. Once the mission is ended, if you tap the waypoints button again, it will give you either save and exit or save without exiting. So that this is where it's best to save it. So if you return at a later date, you can perform the exact same flight as before. So it's really straightforward, the waypoints mission. Now let's talk a little bit about point of interest because this is an interesting one. So point of interest is essentially a feature that needs work, but to use it, you either need to fly over the point of interest you want to capture, directly over it, or if you just, where you are, hit the point of interest button to lay a marker down, then if you tap and hold and drag that marker to where you want your point of interest to be, that is another way to do it. And you can add as many point of interest as you want. However, the problem with point of interest is you need to know the height of the building or structure, whatever it is you're trying to capture. Essentially, this height is telling the gimbal what angle to be at when shooting photo or video, which is pretty hard to determine, well, pre-planning if you don't have the drone active, or even if during flight, how do you know how tall a building is, which you can guess with a drone, but it's not going to be perfect unless you do trial and error. Also, because this is based on a flat plane, for instance, if you're on a mountainside, just like I was in Lefkada, and I was trying to figure this out, and it was always pointing the gimbal up because it wasn't taking into account that there was a hillside and it was sloping down. So the point of interest feature is going to be completely different and throw everything out of whack. So in theory, point of interest is useful. However, you're better off just not using it and just stick to recording the gimbal's functions by just manually hitting this waypoints function and you'll be fine. And this leads on to my findings. So let's continue on to that. So during my findings, I performed a series of tests to make sure that I could get the hang of it and understand how waypoints actually work. So in one of my tests, I actually did 2 points. So the start. So I performed a start and an end point. The start point, the gimbal was pointing vertically down, and then the second point, I had the gimbal pointing forwards. And then once I performed that waypoints, the drone automatically transitions from 90 degrees down to horizontal between the two markers. So it automatically moves the gimbal for you between the 2 points. This is why it's important when every time you lay a marker down, it records your gimbal movement, altitude, and orientation of the drone. Now, another test I did is, can you adjust the speed between 2 points? Yes, you can, because within each waypoint, you can say from waypoints 1 to 2, go at 10 miles an hour, and from 2 to 3, go 20 miles an hour, and then from 3 to 4, do another speed distance, 25, 30 miles an hour. So yes, you can do speed changes. Leading on from that, you can actually manually override the speed as well. So on another waypoints mission I planned from point A to B, if you use the pitch stick, which is on mode 2, it's the right stick here. So that is mode 2. So during a waypoints mission, if you set your waypoints global speed to be 10 miles an hour and you wanted it, it will be quicker, or manually adjust it. If you just push forward, it will increase the speed. Another thing I tested was, can you switch between 24 and 70 millimeter? Obviously this applies to the DJI Air 3, but you cannot have the lens switch between 2 waypoints, which is a shame. So yeah, this is the exact same thing with hyperlapses, which I covered in a previous video, and you can check that out up here. Now I did mention this already, but you're better off manually configuring the point of interest just by flying the drone and hitting the C1 marker using waypoints, rather than adding a point of interest within waypoints, if that makes sense. That way the gimbal's angle and the orientation of the drone is already recorded with each waypoint that you set, rather than relying on the point of interest and figuring out what height that subject is going to be. It becomes more confusing. So it actually simplifies it for you, and it makes it super straightforward once you get the hang of this. And the last thing that I tried to test when I tried to do my night flying of Waypoints performing the exact same missions as I did in the morning is that night mode does not work with Waypoints. So you can either use the normal video mode and you can just either set it to auto. However, I prefer using D-Log-M. So those are my findings from the field test that I was doing back in Cyprus. Now let's carry on to the next section, which is the use cases. So what are the use cases with Waypoints missions? So you have repeatable progress updates for construction. Although project managers want to have this included with mapping sites. So you're not just gonna go there, just do waypoints. They're probably gonna want another service on top of that. Another reason as well is that if you wanna do some cool effects like transitioning from day to night, or even the various seasons. So spring, autumn, winter, summer. Spring, autumn, winter, summer, yeah. Winter, summer, that doesn't make sense. I got the seasons wrong. So if you wanna transition between the seasons, so spring, summer, autumn, winter. And the other benefit of using waypoints is complicated flights. And you'd be like, what do you mean complicated flights? So let's say you are flying the drone manually and you have to navigate a very complex obstacle. So there's trees, you have to go through buildings. It's a very complicated flight. And then you're using both the sticks and you're doing gimbal control. It's a lot going on. So the best part here is using Waypoints mission. You can just fly the drone as you would, set each marker down, and then let the drone do the work afterwards. And that way you don't have to worry about it and just keep an eye on the drone. Now let's talk about some of the pros and cons with using Waypoints. So the benefits is that, as I said from my previous point, is that you can just keep an eye on the drone and keep an eye on your air hazards and ground hazards to make sure everything's gonna be fine with the flight. You get smooth video capture, so you don't have to worry about twitchy thumbs on the stick when trying to catch something. You've already completed your flight, and then the drone will transition smoothly from the different waypoints. And the other benefit is that you can get the exact same flight every single time. However, note, it has to be from the same spot. If you did take off from a different location and that location was 10 feet higher than the original location, then the shots will vary. So you have to take that into account. So what are the downsides to using waypoints? Well, if you're setting the waypoints out in the field, then it's gonna be using some of your battery up to set these up, and it does take time. And if you're creating these off-site and you're doing it at home, it's difficult to determine the height of obstacles, what they are. So you're better off probably doing it in-field. I did mention this earlier, but you have to take off from the exact same location in order for this to work, because if it is a variance in height, it's gonna mess up the smooth transition between shots, whether it's day and night or the different times of the year. This one I find kind of important as well, that you might just miss some moments. So what happens if there is a train passing by and you want to capture that? You're not ready because you're planning waypoints, or the drone's already performing the mission and it's missed that shot. Whereas if you're flying manually, you can capture that shot very quickly. You can cancel your maneuver and just go and chase that train or whatever it is you're trying to capture, and capture those specific moments. Now the last part of this video is what I would like to see improved with waypoints going forward. So if DJI is listening, yeah. Also put your comments down below if you agree or if you have any other ideas to add to this list that you want to see improved to waypoints. So the first thing I would like to do is be able to access waypoints missions through a web browser, and then we'll be able to either create or edit missions that we've already created, and then we can have a 3D map of, let's say, major landmarks, and then we could use the point of interest function to determine the gimbal angle and orientation a lot better. And it's also easier working off a big screen than a smaller screen, but no complaints so far. Now another thing I would like incorporated is within tracking modes, you can select a subject and then the drone will stay focused on that. I would like to see that incorporated into waypoints. That will be a lot easier for you to create perfect arcs or circles. Additionally, if you could just create 3 points, and then after those 3 points, it will give up a pop-up saying, would you like to create an arc or a circle with these points to navigate round the point of interest. I think that will be cool to add as well. And then lastly, is to be able to have the option to take 360-degree panoramic images with waypoints. So let's say you go to a specific location. I think this will be great, especially if you're doing real estate or construction updates. 360 images are actually really helpful in construction to send to developers and subcontractors so they can see the progress of the site interactively through the 360 image. You'd be surprised how beneficial that is. That's everything that I can think of really to just want improved. But if you have anything that you would like to see improved with Waypoints or any additional features, put a comment in the section down below. Okay, that's everything you need to know about Waypoints. And then next week, we're gonna be covering DJI Light Cut. I think we're gonna do that. I do have a few other ideas planned. It may not be software-based, it might be like product-based. I do have some filters that I wanna be testing out soon. So if you're interested to see that, subscribe for future videos. So if there's anything you wanna learn about the DJI 3, let me know in the comment section down below. Is this a drone that you want to upgrade to? Also, let me know what drones you are flying. Subscribe for more videos on drones, photography, and everything in between. And YouTube recommends you check out this video next. See you in the next video. Peace.